Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome, everyone, to our Tuesday evening workshop. What Ivy League schools look for before senior year. I am Coach Onaje. I am glad to be with you this evening. And we also have Coach Ariel with us as well, one of the new members of the egelloC team. And I want to give her time to introduce herself before we jump on into this awesome topic for the evening. Coach Ariel?
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you. So nice to, well, not really see you, but know I'm in the same presence of you. I'm Ariel. I'm new to the coaching team. A little bit about my background is I'm from Long Island, New York. So a lot of you guys are based in California, but now I live in Los Angeles. Uh, my background is that I went to a very competitive high school and went through what you guys are going through. And I myself applied to many Ivy League schools. I was admitted. My sound is echoing. Is there a problem? Got a comment that the sound is echoing. It shouldn't be. Oh, no, hey, is it okay on your end?
Yeah, I'm not hearing any echo myself. I
Might
wonder
be
if
your,
I am echoing as well.
okay, then maybe it's someone's speakers. I want to make sure everyone can hear. Okay. Well, my background is that I was someone who was in a very pressure cooker kind of environment, and I tried to get into the Ivy League schools. I was admitted to UPenn, Cornell, Vanderbilt, Emory, Northwestern, and I received a large merit scholarship from Johns Hopkins and ended up attending USC on a full merit scholarship where I went to a conservatory for writing specifically. And I don't really come from an education background, although I have been working in college coaching for 4 years, so I'm not new to this. My background is as a storyteller, and I view college admissions as actually a personal branding and storytelling exercise. And you might be thinking, oh, that makes sense for essays, but it's actually holistic. We're telling a story through your activities, through your chosen major, through the classes you've took, to show not only that you are really talented and that really smart, but that you are a unique individual that is a right fit for each of these schools. And this stuff is really, really important on the high level consulting, especially for these very elite schools, which get more and more competitive every single year. So I'm very excited to talk about this with you guys. I am with someone who really knows a lot about this process, and we'll go through this kind of insular kind of way that we deal with Ivy League admissions, and we're going to have a lot of fun. This is my favorite kind of stuff because it's the biggest challenge, and I like to work hard to win. So
And we certainly share that in common. I like the biggest challenges, the biggest obstacles. So, whatever is the most difficult thing to traverse and overcome, that's where you'll find me. And I think Coach Ariel and I, we certainly share that in common. And as you listen to her background, you are getting insight into what makes the egelloC team so awesome. That we have such wonderful people with wonderful background and skills and insight who are working to support you and your children. So I'm excited, and I know you are as well. So let's jump in. The goal is to talk about maximizing our odds of admissions to these awesome schools by maximizing our preparation. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, we'll look at the reality of Ivy League admissions. We'll look at some myths and misconceptions. We'll look at some strategy to make applicants competitive. We'll look at school by school breakdown of the Ivies, and then we'll have some takeaways, some action steps, and we will answer questions that you have as well. Okay, so why Ivy League admissions is unique? So we understand that there's a great appeal that so many students have this as a part of their American dream. And certainly as we consider the passageway from young adulthood into adulthood, that is in part traversed through the college experience, many schools are the dream for students. And at the top of that list of schools are Ivy Leagues. So it's a peculiar process because it has so much traffic. There are going to be so many students in these applicant pools looking to gain admissions to these schools, not only because of their quality, because they are really markers of a successful checkpoint in the American dream that so many people are aspiring to fulfill. Of course, they have a global prestige. They have networks of alums who have done incredible things and are doing incredible things that are a resource to current students. There is a pathway that they provide to professional success. And we understand that they, because of their competitive nature, are not just looking at checkpoints of grades and scores. They're looking at the nuances of the student in a holistic way to find the best fit that are going to make the incoming class and the future legacy and reputation of the school only increase and improve with time. So that makes it a very competitive landscape that we have to really be prepared for. But there are also some myths that come with the process as well. Coach, you want to jump in and talk through some of these myths with everyone?
Yeah. So one myth is that you need to have perfect SATs, perfect ACTs. It's not true. There are kids who get in without any scores, though they're moving more towards pro scores and they do value it. There are kids who still get in test optional to some of these elite schools, and you don't have to be perfect. It's more important to be interesting, is usually my thesis when it comes to these elite schools. Only legacy students get in. Not true. So, in most of these schools, they only count legacy if you're applying early decision. And there just are not enough legacies to get people in. And to be honest, although it's a boost for some people, if you're not good enough and you're a legacy, you might not even get in because it is so difficult. Myth, private schools have an advantage. They have to take kids, and they intentionally take kids from every different graphic across the country. Some private schools are great at making these kind of applicants because they're taking very rigorous courses and they have really amazing people. But for example, I've worked with students who live in Appalachia who go to Princeton. I've worked with kids who are Questbridge, who come from very low income families that go to these elite colleges. And some of them intentionally are looking for that because they build out their class and they bring things that the kids who've had a very cushy, though very rigorous academic life might not have. The other thing is Ivies don't care about financial need. First of all, like Ivies sometimes will fight more for students than a state school to give you better financial aid because it is so competitive. If they love you, they really fight for the kids they pick. So that's something worth thinking about, that just because it doesn't look the way you are, many different kids have them. Myth, all Ivies look for the same thing. It's totally inaccurate because each Ivies has their own personal brand. They're almost like companies, like businesses. That's why their logos you kind of remember, you pick out. They're looking for a unique kind of student. And I can tell you, admissions counselors, they'll look at a thing and be like, wow, that's such a Cornell kid, and look at another kid and say, man, they belong at Northwestern. And they are very clear on that. And that's why you find kids who get into one Ivy and rejected from another. It's a very specific prototype, and thinking which ones you apply to is actually a huge part of the strategy.
Absolutely. And someone asked in the chat about upper middle class kids. And I think what we want to consider is the job of an admissions office of building an incoming class. What they're looking for is diversity. They want a diversity of perspectives and of backgrounds because when brought into a campus community, that is how people learn and grow. Having to rub elbows and getting to spend time in classrooms and in shared activities with people from different backgrounds and perspectives. So there is going to be a spectrum of student from different socioeconomic backgrounds, from different locations, with different beliefs and political identities who are brought into community. So the goal across all demographics and all types of students is, I think what Coach Ariel said, to make them interesting, to make them stand out in ways that are very clear, to highlight the very best of their values and virtues in a way that allows the admissions officer to envision and imagine what awesome contribution they're going to make to the campus community based off of who they are and the background they possess. So yeah, great question, by the way. Okay, so why most students fall short, right? So a lot of students fall short because they consider all Ivies to be the same. And the goal is to get into an Ivy, and that goal falls short because they are very different institutions. And a lot of the application and the writing shows that there's a lack of school-specific research, that they did not find what about the school connects with who they are. They did not bridge the gap between what they need and what the school provides, what makes them feel alive, and the resources the school presents. So it's very, very clear that they've written generic applications with generic essays that don't pinpoint the connection between who they are and what the school is. There's an overemphasis on academics without depth. The application and writing becomes a list, a litany of courses taken and grades received, which is not really expressive of who the student is, of what makes them go, of what motivates and inspires them, of the values and virtues they lean on to overcome difficulty and to produce their best work. Generic essays and extracurriculars, again, similar to academics, it isn't just what you've done in and outside the classroom and capturing what it is you've done in and outside the classroom. I say to students all the time, the what, the when, and the where is only the beginning. If you really want to give insight into who you are and to who you've become because of those experiences inside and outside the classroom, you have to show me your why, you have to show me your how. Why you do what you do and how you do what you do will tell me who you really are, so that I know who I'm really getting if I admit you to my campus community. So we don't want generic essays. We want essays that provide a deep dive into who the student is, so that the virtues and values convince the reader to give you a yes. Ignoring fit with specific campus. Again, the application process is connecting who the student is with what the campus is, what the student needs with what the campus provides. So there are inherently going to be IVs that are stronger fits for certain students than others, because of who they are and how they live and what is important to them, what inspires them. So if you miss making that proper fit, you will likely have applications that fall flat. And then we want to make sure that we are distinguishing ourselves from the applicant pool, which means making sure that our values and virtues are clear, that we understand who we are and what we bring to community, what allows us to do our best, and that we make that the highlight of the application, that the themes of the application not only connect to curriculum and major and professional pathway, but that they show the foundation of our character beneath all of that, so that we are distinguished in how we present ourselves from the rest of the applicant pool. And this requires research, right? You cannot engage an Ivy League school's application process without research. Many students struggle in the application completion process because they want to complete the application without having done the thorough research into each opportunity. You are making the connection, once again, between who you are, what motivates you, what you value, and what the school is, what it represents, what it provides, so that the admissions officer clearly understands that what you need to grow into this next version of who you're becoming is what they provide. You will not know that with specificity and detail unless you spend considerable amounts of time looking into the nooks and crannies and details of these schools. And these are schools with a rich tradition and background, that are proud to boast these things. So if you don't know what they are, it's not because it isn't readily accessible to you, it's because you haven't looked. So research into their academic offerings and majors and the specificity and the detail of it, and how that connects with your interest and your experience. Looking into campus culture, value, tradition, and how that overlaps with your culture and value and tradition. The alumni network, career pathways, what is the trajectory of a student? What does that look like beyond your time in undergrad? How does that engage industry and further training and preparation at the master's degree level and the PhD level and professional school level? And what do those opportunities look like so that you can project what your experience at that institution will do for life after the institution? And then what are the programs, the centers that school prides itself on? If it's a first generation student, if it's engaging families and students from diverse backgrounds, each school does it in a unique way. And you want to be sure that you know what that way is so that you can say, I am convinced that based off who I am, what I've done, and the direction I've worked hard to go in, your school has a unique way of doing the things that I need that resonates with me the most. So strategy, right? We want to talk strategy. And the key here today is that you want to align your strategy with the outcome that you want using time as your friend. The reason why we start early is because if we have an eye on the strategy that's going to get us to the outcomes that we want with the Ivies, we can work to implement it over several years. The biggest challenge that I've had, been one of the biggest disappointments, is when I see students that have all the potential, all the ability, but they just started too late. If they had just started earlier, a few years earlier, 12 months, 18 months earlier, they would have been able to align the coursework, align the extracurriculars, align their growth and development with the strategy that was going to distinguish them from the applicant pool. But they've made poor choices that were based on a lack of information, and they've lived in those choices for so long that it's hard to course correct the summer before senior year. So starting early with the strategy. So to those of you who are parents of rising juniors and rising sophomore and rising freshmen, and maybe even younger, it's awesome because the earlier you begin, the better chance you have of successfully implementing the strategy. So let's start with a few obvious things first. Coach Ariel, you want to jump in?
Yes. So this is kind of the obvious. They want kids with great grades, but they don't necessarily need kids with perfect grades. However, you have to be taking rigorous classes. That doesn't mean if you want to be an English major, you need to be in AP Physics C. However, it does mean that you are constantly challenging yourself to take difficult courses and showing you are really, really talented in them. They also want depth, leadership, and impact in activities. A lot of people make the mistake, they want to be president in every club, or they want to be captain of every team. Those are great things and require stuff, but think about it. There are a lot of captains and presidents. We want to know, how did you make an impact? How did you do something that no one else did before in what exists? And how did you create things that no one else has? I often find the goal is not to be the best in your high school or even the best in your city. The goal is to be the only one doing certain things that only you and your kid could do, right? The goal is to be really deeply authentic. And that leads directly into the essays. A lot of people think we want a pretty essay or we want an essay that shows resume. What they're really checking is not how well you can brag or how well you can write. They want to know, do you have emotional maturity? Do you have the capacity to look at your past experiences, introspect, and develop a unique perspective that you'll be able to bring to campus? They want to know what you've lived through and how it's given you a POV. And that's really crucial. We were just talking about this earlier, that your student needs to have values and needs to have a stance on something, not just be great. And that all is about self-awareness. The kids who do the best in this, we mentioned middle-class kids, know they're middle class, but know what's interesting about them. They're not trying to pretend to be something they're not. They just have really put a depth into who they are. They also want people who have strong recommendations because character counts a lot in this process. We want someone that teachers remembered because they really did make an impact when they walked in the room. Also, interviews can be really important in this stuff. It's very important that your student is not just a good student, but has an intellect, has the ability to communicate. Increasingly, a lot of these schools are having video sections as a part of their supplements. They really do want articulate, thoughtful kids who have a perspective that is unique and confidence to articulate that to an adult.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is the holistic presentation of the quality of the student that stitches all of this together. And in all of this, who are you and how does who you are show up? That is the connection between your academic rigor and achievement, between your commitment to activities, between how you reflect on those in your essays, and how your teachers and other leaders talk about you, and how you speak about and present yourself. It is that depth of person and character and virtue that is what is the consistent thing that shows up in every facet of your life. And then I want to share something with you just to give you some perspective in terms of degree, right? What we're talking about here when we talk about applicant pools at the Ivies is really nuanced differences, right? The challenge of the venture of applying to and getting into, receiving admission to one of these 8 schools is that there are so many other students that are talented and that are of high quality that it is a task to distinguish yourself. So we talk about the Ivy League schools, right? And I want to give you 5 I's, right? IVs, 5 I's that really represent a progression, right? There's a progression of student growth and development. And what we want to do is get to the 5th one, because the 5th one is where students really, instead of being the best, as Coach Ariel said, they're the only, right? What makes you unique, right? So if we think of introduction, implementation, imagination, independence, and then inspiration or institution, this is the progression from sort of start to potential culmination that is the possibility for each student. If you think of any coursework or any extracurricular, it begins with an introduction. A student begins a class in a particular subject matter. They begin an extracurricular. They learn the rules and regulations, the procedures, the expectations, and they successfully are indoctrinated into what is required. And a student who can learn that, who can abide by that, is going to meet some success. And that's sort of the starting point. Do you understand what this venture requires of you? And are you able to live accordingly? Then there's implementation, which is the 2nd I. Can you consistently do so as the rigor improves? Right? You know the lay of the land. You know what is expected of you. You know what's required of you. And it's easy to do that for a day or for a week or for a month or for a semester or even a year. But can you build the track record of doing that year over year across a discipline of study as the rigor increases from one year to the next, implementing your understanding of what is required in that venture? That's the 2nd I. And a lot of really good students get here. Students who are 4.0, 5.0 weighted GPA. Students who are getting 4s, if not 5s, on AP exams. Students who are presidents of clubs and leaders of schools. They know what they're supposed to do, and they do it consistently. The level beyond that, though, is imagination. That's the 3rd I. Can you begin to see how the collection of skills and talents and experiences and insights you're gaining will lead to a future? That's a way of distinguishing yourself from the student who knows what to do and does it. You are now saying, because of what I have accomplished in this coursework, because of what I've experienced and achieved in these activities, I now connect them to a future that will allow me to do that at higher levels of academic achievement or professionally. The student that can present that has distinguished himself from the really good student who crosses every T and dots every I, but hasn't really taken the time to reflect on where they want this collection of experiences to go. So good students, top tier students, get to level 2, get to I2. But the student that begins to distinguish themselves gets to the 3rd level, where they say, now I can see where I'm going because of all these things that I've done so well. An even better student gets to that 4th I, which is independence. Once you have an imagination of where your talents and interests and commitments can take you, the next thing is, can you engage that imagination in the present independently? Beyond what your teachers require of you, beyond what your advisors require of you, can you find ways to build that skill, to develop that project, to do that research, to engage that opportunity that are self-driven? And they may not necessarily be self-governed. You may do a research project with a college. You may work at an internship professionally. So you may find yourself in a new environment, but your access of it, your desire to engage it, your discovery of it is fostered by your independent interest. It's not because someone told you to do it. It's because you had a thirst and a hunger to find out more. The imagination of what the future could bring based on all the interest and insight you've been gaining, it just required you to go and explore. I have to intern. I have to research because I cannot sit on this passion that I have. I have to find ways to engage it. That fourth eye is really distinct. It's really distinct, and you'll find that few students and pools get to that eye, though a good portion do. But this fifth eye is really when you make yourself not the best, but the only, the inspiration and the institution. Once you have been introduced to a coursework, you've been introduced to an activity, you've learned the rules and regulations, and you've learned how to abide by them consistently, you've implemented them over long periods of time, you've built an imagination based off of what the possibilities that presents to you, you've independently began to manifest an imagination through research, through internship, through exploration. The next step is, can you use what you've learned through independent research and engagement to inspire? Can you shape rooms and communities and clubs and groups based off of what the independent engagement of that passion has taught you? Can you change community and improve it because of it? Because it's one level of accomplishment to use your exploration to improve you. But what is rarefied air is when you can now use it to improve others. We talked earlier, Coach Ariel said there's a lot of students that are captains of this or leaders of that. Those are titles. Beyond the title, tell me what happens when you enter a group. When you walk in a room, do things change? If you join a club, does the direction change? Does the quality of the club's productivity and output improve? Do you increase the passion of the members? Is their knowledge base improved because you were there? Because you use this great imagination and your independent exploration to be of benefit to the people around you? And then can you also, if not inspiring existing collectives, can you build something that is based off of that independent mastery? Can you develop something that did not exist prior to you that will then create space and broach new territory and create innovation that will change the landscape? It is basically saying that what I have gained through my independent exploration of these topics, I can now use to the benefit of community and society. So you want to go from introduction to implementation to your imagination to independent indulgence of that imagination to begin to see what the future could look like today. And then you want to determine, now that I've mastered this to this degree, how can I use this to inspire others and build institutions, whether it's a company or a nonprofit or a club or a group, something that says my independent research has led me to found something to the benefit of community and society around me. So those are the 5 I's. We don't want to stop at implementation, doing what we're required to do. We want to get to imagination, then independence. Then we want to get to inspiration ultimately and institution, because when we get there, we are one of one. Instead of being the best, we're the only, as Coach Ariel so wonderfully put it. Okay, so now we want to jump into really individualizing the IVs, right? We said earlier that one of the mistakes a lot of students make is they clump them together, and they think they're what is it, octuplets. They think the 8 IVs are sort of mirror versions of one another, and they're not. They are distinct institutions that are vastly different in so many ways. And to be successful in your application to any of them, you must know each of them individually so that you can align yourself and your needs with what they provide. All right, Coach Ariel, you want to start with Harvard?
Sure. So each of these schools have their own kind of archetype, not in only how they see themselves, but they see their students. I think an important thing to add is that a lot of people think going to Harvard makes you great. No, All these schools are picking kids that they think are already destined for what they define as greatness and what they think is going to be an alumni. So there's even statistics that show that kids who get into these schools, who go to other schools, have just as good outcomes as the kids who went to the elite schools, because it's a certain kind of thing. They look for kids who are already successful. So as we know, Harvard is in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is an area near Boston. The acceptance rate is 3.4, SAT range 710 to 770, math 750 to 800, 35 to 30, 33 to 35 ACT. So it's known for its government, its economics, its pre-med, its engineering, liberal arts. Also, they have a divinity school, which is a lot of people love. They emphasize authentic leadership and real world impact over flawless test scores. And what we find is that they really like charismatic kids who are really comfortable articulating, presenting themselves, who are fiercely independent, who kind of, what we were discussing earlier, can just walk into a room and have a certain energy about them. And that's an energy that you will find in the activities, in their recommendation letters, in their interviews, and also an essay in how they present themselves in their personal essays.
Absolutely. And then we have Yale, and Yale is in New Haven, Connecticut, which is a smaller city. Similar acceptance rate at a 3.7, SAT range 1470 to 1580, ACT 33 to 35. Popular majors are the humanities, law related, as Yale also has a very world-renowned law school. Interdisciplinary studies, so students who have a variety of interests at this, looking to study at the highest level, looking to combine them into some sort of cohesive approach to shaping their learning experience throughout their time in college. And students who are curious and self-driven in their exploration. So really looking into research opportunities, looking into opportunities to use the vast array of resources at Yale to pursue what really is their growth and the development that they seek, probably as much as their grades. And then a pro tip that we really want to give, Yale has a lot of civically engaged students. I found that a lot of students that I've helped get into Yale are civically engaged, whether that be politically or communally. They are very much committed to collective and to using technology or economics or politics or business to have a positive social impact.
So unlike the other two, Princeton is in a suburban area of New Jersey in a really nice, pretty town. So if you like that kind of suburban environment, it's one of the few of these that actually isn't rural, but isn't in the city. So acceptance rate is also really small, 5.8. And so it's a similar range as it is for Yale or Harvard. They're big on their School of Public Policy, their engineering, their liberal arts. One thing to really know is that Princeton mostly is an undergraduate school. Though they have a couple of graduate programs, they are very hyper focused on undergraduates. That's why like things with like big grad funding doesn't affect them as much. They can be a little more independent, and they have a kind of different ball game because of how small they are. You get a little more attention for an IB as well. So they care about academic depth, clarity of purpose in a highly selected environment. They want people who are really high achieving, who are very deep, and also really know what they're doing. I find that they like kids who are very resilient, and resilient doesn't mean like, oh, if I come from a upper class family, I can't do this. Anyone can be resilient in different ways. They like people who are results oriented, who are seeking justice. They're trying to right something in the world. And now the truth is, justice can be a charged word, but anything can be a justice, right? It's about what you view as justice. It's having clarity, though, that thinking this is right. They focus deeply on the undergraduate students, as I said, and I find that the kids are really detail oriented, really high achieving, and very focused on what they're doing.
And then very different from Princeton is Columbia, which is in New York, New York. So it's very, the most urban landscape you're going to get. Again, similar acceptance rate, similar SAT range, similar ACT range, but majors are different. So journalism, political science, which are very much in line with the big city landscape. Of course, engineering and pre-med. Columbia, unlike Princeton, does have the cadre of graduate level schools. So there are great resources for students to engage even as they are in undergrad, which sort of is in scale to the big city backdrop. There is a need to identify the student's ability to leverage the vast array of resources Columbia has, and the vast array of resources New York City has to develop themselves into the professional and future leader they're going to become. And it really has a cosmopolitan sort of tint to it. It's looking for students who, across their fields of discipline, but even beyond them into their hobbies, are looking to consume art and history and the classics, who want to take advantage of the vast array of resources, again, that Columbia has and that their city landscape offers as well.
So UPenn has kind of a different personality type. As you can see, it's in Philadelphia. So still in an urban area, but even though it's in urban, it's got a very closed campus versus Columbia, not so much. Columbia is really like within the city. Same kind of acceptance rate, a slightly higher ACT range, if you can see, and SAT range. So not enormous, but we see that. It's very known for having specific programs, like its business school. Wharton is the top business school in the country. I would say there's engineering, there's social science, there's health sciences. They also have some elite programs like the Huntsman program, which is known for really great public policy, lots of interesting stuff. They also have a school of nursing, which is fascinating. So they really want people who have a professional mind, who own who they are. They like people who build, who demonstrate they can create something to the ground and build strategic partnerships. Now, strategic partnerships can mean a lot of things. It could mean other nonprofits. It could mean like within a business sense, it could be bringing a community in. They like people who not only make something, but get other people involved and are kind of generative in nature.
And then we have Brown, which is urban, but it's a small city, sort of similar to Cambridge without having the Boston next to it. A similar acceptance rate, slightly higher. Again, we're seeing similar SAT ranges, similar ACT ranges. One of the great things about Brown is the great lengths they go to encourage independence. The first year without grades, the lack of a need to declare a major early on, the ability to take coursework across curriculum without being limited. It is really about being self-directed and being proactive in using your independence and authenticity to shape your experience. It's really a school for the go-getter who has a vision that may not be 100% clear, but behind that vision is ambition to use the resources in an unorthodox way to pursue clarifying what that vision is through the opportunities Brown offers. They like a polymath, someone who has a great range of insight and information across various areas of discipline, who likes to combine various disciplines to enhance their ability to maximize their impact. And again, the self-directed independent explorer is sort of their archetype of student that they're really looking to sort of bring into their campus environment and then sort of let them loose to engage as they see fit.
So Dartmouth is a really interesting one because it's in New Hampshire. So it's in a small area that kind of can feel remote in nature. Around the same amount of ACT and SAT, it's 6.2 acceptance rate. It's known for their econ, their environmental science, also being in the rural area really helps, and government. They are big in community and authentic leadership. What's important to know about Dartmouth is that it is very close-knit. The students get to know each other very well. It's intimate in a way some of the Ivies aren't. In some ways, it's like Princeton, but it's a completely different culture than Princeton. Something to know is that there is a large amount of student athletes. They recruit more than other schools. A lot of people are involved in that aspect of life. It's the athletic kind of older sister. They have a quarter system, so it operates differently instead of semesters. Another thing to know is that they are less major focused than some of the other Ivies. They make students wait to declare a major because they want people who are open to learning different kinds of things. So if you're someone who is hyper focused on one field of study, for one of these colleges, that might be perfect. But for Dartmouth, they really want you to be willing to go in kind of undeclared. And so they're looking for a mind and they're looking for a skill set rather than a great specialist in one thing.
Wow. And then, last but certainly not least, there's Cornell, which is Ithaca, New York, which is very rural. 8% acceptance rate. Similar SAT range. Once again, we've seen that 33 to 35 ACT range a bunch. Popular majors, which are housed in various colleges. So engineering, biology, agriculture, life sciences, hotel administration. So there is a frequent presence of a passion for hands-on learning and using what is engaged in classroom spaces to apply to real-world challenges. So what is the real-world application of this content, of this curriculum? As I said before, when you apply to Cornell, which is very different than some of the other Ivies, you apply to the school within Cornell. So the College of Arts and Sciences. What's some other schools that I'm
Agriculture school.
the
They
College
have
of
a
Agriculture.
school of hotel administration, which is very specific.
Right.
Another one called ILR, which is international labor relations. So people are
Yes.
interested in human resources, how corporations work. They have some very unique schools on top of just being applying specific to schools. And some of those programs are not available at any other Ivy League school.
So you have to be very clear on your match, not just with Cornell, but with that particular school, based on the academic engagement, based on the extracurriculars housed within that school. So you're applying to the school, not just the university. And there is a unique offering in the rural environment that is used across majors and schools to enhance the learning through practical hands-on experiences. So it's a bonus if you can highlight how you will extend your learning beyond the classroom into the landscape to use to enhance what you are able to achieve, what you're able to comprehend throughout your experience at Cornell undergrad. And that is the eighth of the eight. So as you see, each of these schools is unique in their approach, in their focus, in their culture, in how they regard students, in what virtues and values and characteristics and personality they're looking for in students, and what direction they want to help their students head to impact the world. So we don't want to make the mistake of thinking they're all alike because they're incredibly unique. We want to make the proactive step of researching the school to find the nuances that connect with us. Remember, the application process is convincing the reader that who you are and what you need is matched by what the school is and what it provides. That is the claim you are making and evidencing. What I need to become this next version of myself is exactly what you provide in these detailed, specific ways. So we consider how we distinguish ourselves in this process of highlighting what makes us a great fit for the school. Every student's going to try to do that. Some students will do it better than others. Some will stop at the what, the when, and the where. Our students must head further into the who and the why, because the who and the why highlight the virtue and value and character, and they show a student as a fit for the unique way of doing school, of being an institution of higher education, of living within the culture of that institution that each school has. So we take time to align our coursework, to align our extracurricular engagement, our service, and our leadership, but we also take time to progress all the way through imagination, through independence, to inspiration and institution, so that the through lines and themes of what makes a student unique and what makes their contribution to a campus community a one of one abundantly clear to anyone who reads the application. This is how we distinguish our students in an already incredibly distinguished applicant pool that each of these 8 Ivy League schools is very well known for having. So this has been our presentation to give you some insight into what we must do. On behalf of Coach Ariel and myself, we thank you for joining us this evening, and we open up the floor to questions. Please go and throw some of those questions you have or comments you may have into the chat, and we'll sift through and try to get to all of them to give you some insight and some information to help propel you forward.
while we wait, I want to add that the goal is not to mold your kid into, let's say, a Princeton kid. What we
Right.
will do is we will find which one is the right match for your child or your student, and basically help them live up to their potential. So, like, you can't just pick a random one and just throw them in. The
Right.
goal is to find the one that they already kind of fit and reach them to the next level, so that way they're competitive.
Right. I think that's totally exactly right, Coach Ariel. And the word that comes to mind as you share that is authenticity. Authenticity. It's not about trying to force your kid into an archetype and say, well, I am this kid, I am this type of student and leader. It is to identify, again, what that student needs. Every student has a need. The reason why these colleges are in such high demand and can charge as much as they do is because they meet need. And students who have achieved at the highest levels and grown and developed in ways that not only have positive impact on them and their families, but on their school community, the community at large, society at large. There's a need that they have to grow into that next version of themselves. And when that need is authentic, the goal is then to match the school to that need, not to match the student to the school.
I see
Great
we have
point.
a question. Where can I watch the recording?
It will be on YouTube. So this will be posted to YouTube. And I don't know if you're on YouTube anywhere else, Coach Ariel, but this is an amazing debut.
Haha.
You've been awesome this evening. So yes, I don't know the turnaround time. My guess would be by the top of next week at the latest, you'll be able to watch this on egelloC's YouTube channel.
I also see, can you help the essay review of a senior who's applying this fall? Yes, we can. We have many seniors we are helping right now, and we have a lot offered to make that possible. We put a lot of individualized attention into every single essay, and that's definitely helpful. And often people have the wrong idea of what the essays are looking for. So we've worked with a lot of students and we know what has worked in the past, and it's through proven results rather than, oh, this would sound good. And often people get a lot of bad advice on essays. So we try to offer experienced advice on what really does work.
Yes. This seems like a perfect time to share this with you. If you're looking for a free 15-minute assessment with our college admissions advisors, text book to 949-775-0865. This is a great way to learn more about the support we can provide to your student at whatever portion of the journey they're on. And I would encourage you to reach out right away to see the ways we might be able to support you.
Now we have, do schools conduct interviews? Yes. And they don't have the ability to interview every applicant, but if you can interview, you should definitely take that opportunity. And doing well in an interview can be helpful. And it's also not just about the answers you get to the questions, but the questions you ask of your interviewers. Many of the people who do interviews are alumni who are involved in alumni communities. My mom actually, growing up, was a interviewer for Cornell. And so that can be really helpful if they're choosing between you and another candidate. Some do on-campus interviews, which is hard to get, but those are really great if you can get something like that as well. Building relationships matters a lot.
Absolutely. I think someone put into the chat. So you recommend applying to only certain one of the Ivies that fit our kid instead of applying to all of them, right? Do you also speak about Duke, MIT, Stanford? So much of the insight shared about the 8 Ivies would apply to those. Those are very Ivy adjacent schools. Stanford is another. So it's the individualization. It's identifying what is unique about that school, its culture, its process, and determining if there's fit. Now, the great thing about these institutions is that even the smaller ones are large institutions with a vast array of resources. So the goal is not necessarily to disqualify schools, it's to really dig into the nuances of what each school is to find what it may offer that overlaps with what you need. So it is not, we certainly wouldn't prohibit you or suggest that you don't apply to all of them. The goal is to first convince yourself that there's fit, and then work to put together the type of application that will convince the reader that there's fit. And that may require you to look into different facets of each institution, the extracurriculars, the academics, the professors, the internships, the culture, to really find what are the unique combination of things that would meet my needs. And there are students who can look at all 8 and find that version of the school. Because of course, if a school has 1,000 students, there's 1,000 different experiences, right? So it's about identifying what would be the experience at that school that would work for you. And if you find it across all 8, apply.
And I'd love to speak about it because I've handled a lot of students, and I myself did better, I think, at like the schools that I would call Ivy level, but aren't the Ivy 8, like Duke, MIT, Stanford. I would include Vanderbilt, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, Notre Dame. With these schools, they all have their archetypes too. So the ones you listed, Duke likes people who are always looking for combinations. They like really high achieving people who can combine, kind of like in a Brown way. MIT, they look for genius, and they have a completely different application than common application. And I actually think it is harder to get into MIT than Harvard because it's a self-selecting group. It's easier to apply to Harvard because you have to do a whole new application. Stanford likes kind of like geniuses versus Notre Dame. They are a Catholic college, so they love kids who are big on structure and order and who have a relationship to their faith. So we're experienced with all these kind of schools and what they look for. So they definitely have a similar philosophy, and all the tenets we said here approach, they just have different archetypes. And so like I would say, like there's some schools that people can get into. And so you can apply to all the Ivies, and there are people who can get into vastly different ones, but the applications look quite different, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. I see. If I have legacy in any of these parents attended, is it okay to mention that subtly through essays such as my background? There will likely be other places in the application where they ask you that if you have family member or parent who've attended the school. So I would leave that for that space and not necessarily make that a prominent feature of the essay, unless there was an experience during which you were on campus or you interacted with the community that was facilitated by your parent or your family's affiliation. If it's relevant to a story that evidences your virtue and your character that are at the highlight of your capacity to take full advantage of the experience the school provides, then include it. But if it's just in terms of a listing, there'll be somewhere else in the application where you can do that.
I will say this, if you're a legacy to an Ivy, I would recommend applying early decision to that Ivy because there are some Ivies that only consider legacy in the early decision level. So two, for example, are Cornell and UPenn. So if you are applying early decision, they consider that as a factor to help you. However, if you're applying in general, they don't use that as an advantage. It's kind of a thing of like, they want the commitment. They want you to take advantage. And these schools are all concerned with yield. They want the kids that go to be kids who attend. So that's what they're trying to gauge. Would you really go here? For example, I've worked with a lot of kids in Michigan, which has a great state school. They are often trying to deduce, would this kid really prefer to go to an Ivy League over Michigan, which is an excellent school, which might be significantly cheaper. So you have to really prove you want to go. They do a thing called yield protection. If they don't think you're going to attend, they might not admit you. Sometimes they waitlist you. Another school that's known notoriously for that is Washington University in St. Louis. They waitlist a lot of qualified applicants because they don't want kids they do not think who will come to be admitted, because that messes with their acceptance rates. It messes with their class. They want this idea of demonstrated interest. It's not just, oh, you want to go. It's, oh, if I let the student in, they will attend. They will be a part of the class.
And this is the type of consideration that we want to be at the forefront of our planning and strategy and decision-making processes, because we have insight into this vast array of schools. We understand from their perspective what they're doing. Oftentimes, the admission process is only considered from the perspective of the student and family, but the institution has a perspective as well. And a lot of the things that families and students think are a benefit to them are actually instituted for the benefit of the school. You think early decisions for you, it's not for you, it's for them. They want to make sure they have a certain yield, so they have a certain projection for who will come into that class, for the revenue that will follow those students and families. So they use these features to the benefit of their projections and their building of the next class. That just allows us for a strategic advantage if we understand that, so that we can determine not only where to apply, but how to apply as well. And someone said, thank you, that the information was very helpful, and you are very, very welcome. You're very welcome.
Last call for any last questions
Yes.
and answer before we head off. It was great getting to talk to you guys, and I
Yes,
hope that
indeed.
this was insightful. I think that the process can be full of like unhelpful advice, so that's our goal, is to make it understandable and digestible, because there's no reason that you should have less of a shot because you don't have the right information.
Indeed. Indeed. Again, uh, textbook to 949-775-0865. And let me also share this with you. Use this QR code. We have financial aid support as well from our financial aid guru, Coach David. So use that QR code to connect with him to help strategize your approach to the financial aid process at these and an endless number of additional schools as well. Can you do this for me, please? Can you put a thumbs up or give an applause for Coach Ariel this evening? She's been amazing. As I said, we're super excited to have her as a part of the team, and I think having heard from her this evening, you're excited as well. She is an awesome resource and provides amazing coaching to our students. And if that isn't you already, it could be you if you reach out once again to 949-775-0865. Give yourselves a round of applause and a thumbs up for being here this evening. We hope that you've learned a lot. And as we are readily available to offer you individualized and personalized support, do reach out so that we can support you, so that you can strategize your way to the Ivies or to any school of you or your student's dream.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Good evening, all. Take care.